Hey, what's up everyone? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this video we are looking at the SDCC exclusive Gladiator figure. Gladiator is a character people have wanted in the Marvel Legends line. Basically, as long as there have been Legends, there have been countless customs of this guy made, and now finally we have an official release of Gladiator. Some people love it, some people not so much. I'm torn, personally. I like it a lot, and I also dislike a lot of it. So I'll go ahead and explain why as we go through the review. He stands about 7 1/4 inches tall at the top of his mohawk. He's a little bit big. He's built on the Hyperion body. You guys know how I feel about that body, and that's the main reason why I'm not 100% for this figure. The Hyperion body just isn't a good sculpt. It is hidden well by the cape, so that does go a long way to help him, so that's good enough for me. I'm okay with that. Excuse me, I'm okay with that. The cape is not symmetrical. You guys know I prefer symmetrical capes. However, the composition of this cape is such that it still covers the right areas. It is windswept this way, but the way they have the cape kind of curled, it still looks good. It's still kind of symmetrical in terms of composition. We don't have the cape like this, that's what I don't like. I don't like having all the cape on one side of a figure. This one's windswept, but it's still kind of centered and looks good, so I'm happy with that. The paints could be a little bit better, you know, we have some gold just overspray around, but it doesn't look too bad. It's not horribly noticeable. There is shading throughout. I don't know if it'll show up, but I have kind of like a blank spot where there's no shading at all. That kind of thing happens, I understand that. It's still disappointing that I have a big blank spot where there's no shading. Hopefully you can see that, maybe like that. So that's disappointing. Likewise, the shading, their style of airbrush shading is just, it's not going well. They need to do something about it. We have just these big splotches of really dark gray or black shading that don't really line up with any of the sculpt or anything, so that's a little disappointing. I've seen some that were worse, some that were a little better. Mine's kind of in the middle. We have just shading there, there. Just kind of haphazardly sprayed on. And then on the torso, let me get it a little closer for you, it's actually speckled and not evenly put down in any way, so that's pretty disappointing. It really detracts from the figure, and that's what I was going to say as far as why I don't like parts of it. The shading just really throws it off. This metallic blue that they used looks gorgeous. I love that color. I love that swirliness. It suits this guy nicely. It's molded here. I think it's painted on the biceps, painted on the thighs, molded for the hips, and then painted on the torso. It's all fairly uniform. The only thing that's lacking is that the painted parts don't have the swirl at all. The molded parts do. So in fact, this might be, no, okay. So yeah, the swirly parts are molded, and then the flat parts are painted. The flat part looks really good. The swirly part looks really good. It'd be nice if it was all one thing. I understand that that didn't happen, or why that didn't happen, so that's okay. There's no sculpt work where any of the seams are, even for the belt, so that's a little disappointing. The belt is pretty shoddy. It doesn't look that great. The chest emblem is pretty sharp looking. They did a good job with that. I just wish that that black shading wasn't all around it to make it look less good. And then for like the paint applications, you know, we have overlaps of where they're laying these applications down, so it's not ideal, but it's not enough that it detracts completely from the figure. I love the head sculpt. We'll go ahead and pop it off. I think this is a really nicely done Gladiator. It does have blue shading in the hair. I wish the shading was a little more uniform. This side it goes all the way down almost. On this side we have some chunks like in the front where it's all black, and then there's no shading on the front at all. It's still pretty good. I do really like the sculpt though. It does have that kind of ambiguous square jaw, square nose, square everything that they've been doing on almost all the male figures, but it suits Gladiator really well, and with those pointy ears it looks just the way I want it to. So I'm really happy with the head sculpt, a whole lot. The cape doesn't sit perfectly on the body, but it's not enough to really bug me. It pegs in where Hyperion's pegged in, so technically you can take it off. And then you can see the shoddy paintwork that we're used to underneath, and the horrible anatomy. But with the cape on, like I said, those things aren't too much of an issue. Be aware that when you take the cape off, it does not like to go back in. The peg's kind of soft, and it's really a pain in the butt to put it back in. it just wants to fold over. You have to line it up just right and push it just at the right angle. If I had a nickel for every time I said that. And then here's the other issue that bugs me. They sat the head really high on the ball peg again. So the ball peg has a little bit of extra plastic between the peg itself and the disc. Oh, and also the neck paint is worn off from the head, and that was like that out of the package. Anyway, the head sits really high on the ball peg, so there's a giant gap. It does give you more play in posing it, but it's only hidden if you look at it from the front, which looks really cool. He's a really badass looking figure. But if you look at it from the side, we have a big gap. So, I don't know, I prefer to not have that big gap personally. I don't care for that. It's just, and the way the neck works is kind of only in two positions. Even though it's not ratcheted, it doesn't want to stay in the middle position too well. So, you know, there are issues, but it's still a really sweet looking figure. Obviously, it's the only official release of Gladiator, so I'm going to tell you to go ahead and pick it up if you like Gladiator or Marvel Legends. Despite its flaws, it's still pretty cool, and it's a really nice looking figure once you ignore those few little issues. It's the same articulation as Gladiator, or as Sentry. He's not out yet. Hyperion, they did show Sentry again, but it's the same articulation as Hyperion or all those other characters that use this body. So there it is, guys. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more figure reviews, custom figures, and other good stuff. And in the meantime, keep collecting.